Well, hey there, guys. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is a companion video. What are companion videos? Well, I'm awfully glad that you asked. You see, every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday, we take time to take your live comments and questions that you send in via the tip link. However, we don't always have enough time to get around to all of the questions that get sent in. But since you sent them in, I want to make sure they get answered. So I gather up those unused questions and we get caught up on them right here on companion videos. Now, as you can probably tell, I am not in my regular studio. I am actually out of town right now, but I promised you guys I would do a companion video this weekend, so that's damn well what we are going to do. So let's not waste any time and jump right into it, shall we? We're going to get started off here with Drew Russell, who writes, "Hey John, yay! HBO Max is on Roku, but I also noticed that DC Universe has been removed. What gives? I thought they were very clear that it would remain for comics and their comic-related content, but the app as a whole is poof. Thanks, and bring on the filthy." Well, listen, Drew, you are actually, it's funny because somebody wrote into me about this the other day. Hold on a second. And was asking me about this. And I said, well, it should still be there. And sure enough, it wasn't. And here it is. Give me a second here. This is actually a common problem that a lot of people are saying they're having. They're saying that people updated their Roku and now they can't have it. And there's a bunch of people saying that they have the same problem. My Roku recently rebooted, and since it did, I'm unable to locate DC Universe, the DC Comics universe stuff. Some people are saying that it might be an issue of, now I never found out the answer to this myself. Some people are saying it might be an issue of maybe older Roku devices aren't able to access it anymore. Maybe there are certain features of DC Universe. Now, the bottom line is, I actually don't know the answer to the question, other than you're not the only one experiencing this. So if you do find out a solution to this or find out what's going on, please share it in the comments section so other people like Drew can figure out what's going on. Thanks for writing that in, Drew. All right, next up, B. Wayne, New York writes, "Hey, John, Rob." Rob's not here, obviously. "This weekend, I'm watching Mando for the first time." Good on you, man. "For the first time. With all the streaming coming, I decided it was a perfect time for a new big screen 4K TV and sound system. Did my best to dodge all the spoilers and looking forward to binging it." Well, listen, when you get a brand new TV, we were talking about this on my show a few weeks ago. When you get a brand new TV, it's almost like a sacred thing, picking what is the first thing you want to watch on that brand new TV. For me, it's usually a Star Wars movie. But if you did yours with Mandalorian, that ain't a bad choice either. And I'm actually a little bit jealous that you get to watch Mandalorian for the first time. I'm sure you probably already know about Baby Yoda. That's impossible to avoid. But if you've been able to avoid most of the major spoilers, good on you, and you're in for a really good time, B. Wayne. All right, next up. Abdullah Al-Ghatan writes, "Hey, John. With all the new announcements, it got me thinking, what Star Wars novel would you want adapted as a Disney Plus series? For me, it's easily Lords of the Sith. I would love to see Ian McDiarmid come back one more time after the mess that was Episode 9. Yeah, listen, Lords of the Sith, I've said this repeatedly, is actually my favorite Star Wars novel. Certainly my favorite Star Wars novel in this new Disney canon era, and maybe even my overall favorite Star Wars novel, period. It's that good. Would it make a great series? I don't think Lords of the Sith would make a great series, to be honest with you. Seriously. I don't think it'd make a very good series. It really is positioned to be a great 2-hour movie. It really is. Now, if you want to talk about one that would make a great series, Lost Stars by Claudia Gray. Because it spans the scope of all 3 original Star Wars movies, but told from different perspectives. You could easily make 3 seasons, each season focusing on the time period of one of each of the individual movies. So season 1 focuses on the time period around A New Hope, season 2 around the time period of Empire. You see where I'm going with that. So yeah, I would say Lost Stars would be the one that I think would be best suited as a series. Lords of the Sith is the best book, but I just think it's better suited as a movie. That's just me. All right, thanks for writing that in, man. All right, an anonymous viewer writes, one of 3. "Hey, John, I have another hot take for you. Since Marvel is not going to recast T'Challa, there is a clear choice for the next Black Panther and leader of Wakanda. One character that has shown the level of strength, complexity, and poise to be both a leader and a warrior, played by a world-class A-list lead. To me, it must be Lupita Nyong'o Nakia. She was the River Tribe candidate who saved the First Family and the Herb. She believed Wakanda could protect itself and help the world at the same time. Nakia was meant to be T'Challa's queen, and giving Lupita the emotional weight of mourning the death of her beloved, while also being forced to take on his mantle during a crisis, could make for one of the MCU's most memorable emotional performances. And listen, we actually talked about this on the show maybe about a week or 2 weeks ago, where everybody else seems to want to focus on Shuri for some reason. Terrible choice, even though she's one of my favorite characters in the MCU. I have been spending most of my time focusing on M'Baku, who of course has been the leader of his own tribe for years, and he came this close to beating T'Challa to be the rightful king of Wakanda. But we mentioned a week or two ago that one that we are obviously overlooking is Lupita Nyong'o Nakia, because she is a devastating warrior without the Black Panther herb. She's a devastating warrior. She understands the world. She has been spending years going outside of Wakanda's borders to make sure she understands the world and try to help the rest of the world. She would have been either King T'Challa's queen or his betrothed queen. I mean, she literally checks off all the boxes: character, leadership, poise, empathy, warrior, like all of that. Not to mention being played by one of the best performers in the world right now in Lupita Nyong'o. So listen, I gotta say, Nakia is a very good choice. Nakia would be a very good choice. So you have her as the new, monarch of Wakanda and the new Black Panther, with M'Baku as an ally, with Shuri, her sister-in-law, being in there as main characters as well. I think you got an absolute winner on your hand. I'm totally with you on that one, Sam Wilson, or not Sam Wilson, as the case may be. Well thought out. All right, Ladislav writes, "Hey, John, I am your longtime fan and Patreon from Slovakia." Well, thank you so much, Ladislav. I appreciate that, man. "I just watched the Wonder Woman 84 in IMAX, and I have to begrudgingly agree with you in the cinemas versus streaming discussion. Nothing compares to the cinema experience. By the way, your documentary rocks." Well, thank you so much for that, man. Obviously, he's talking about my documentary about movie trailers called Movie Trailers: A Love Story. It is available now worldwide on Vimeo. That's at vimeo.com/on-demand/movie trailers. But if you happen to live in the US or the UK, it's also available on Amazon. Just go to Amazon and search for Movie Trailers: A Love Story, and you should be able to find it. And yeah, I've been hearing from a lot of people that have now the opportunity to actually see Wonder Woman 84. And that is great. I am, of course, going to watch it on Christmas Day, along with most people who live in the United States. I'm going to watch it on Christmas Day for the first time. I'm very excited about seeing it. I have not loved the trailers for Wonder Woman 84. Frankly, I don't think they did a very good job with the trailers for Wonder Woman 84. That being said, I have all the faith in the world in Patty Jenkins, so I've always trusted it's going to be really good. So I'm glad you watched it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm super jealous you got to see it on the big screen. I will not. All the theaters where I live are closed, unfortunately, because of the pandemic. But I am going to get to watch it, so lucky you, you bastard. You got to see it and see it on the big screen the way it was meant to be seen in the first place. So good on you, Ladislav. And thanks again for being a Patreon supporter, man. I appreciate that. All right, next up, we've got James LH who writes, "Hi, John. With Boba in Mandalorian, I was sad to read of the passing of the original actor, Jeremy Bulloch. Maybe not the biggest name to some, but he's part of Star Wars. I also remember him in a recurring role, to me, in the best Robin Hood of Sherwood. I've never watched that one myself, but yeah, we talked about this the other day. Now, of course, Jeremy Bulloch, not a household name to a lot of people, but he was the guy who was the original man inside the Boba Fett costume for the original Star Wars movies, in Empire and in Return of the Jedi. And it just, what especially sucks right now is that we seem to be losing a lot of our Star Wars family, right? Boba Fett is now gone. Vader is gone. Chewie is gone. Our princess is gone. R2 is gone. It's just the last couple of years, we've just seemed to have lost a bunch of them all in a batch. And I was really unfortunate to hearing about the passing of Jeremy Bulloch. Thanks for sharing that, James LH. All right, next up, James Argento writes, "So, if I understand this right, both Mando Season 3 and a new show next December. New show is not the third season of Mandalorian, correct?" All right, so this has been a big question surrounding ever since Thursday night at midnight when Mandalorian season 2 had its finale. And if you guys don't know anything about it, you might want to mute your computer for the next 2 minutes because I'm going to give a bit of a spoiler away. But of course, Boba Fett at the end, the book of Boba Fett coming in Christmas. It has caused some confusion. And I'll even be honest with you, I don't 100% know what the answer is, but according to Deadline, they are doing both. Book of Boba Fett is not Mandalorian Season 3. Mandalorian Season 3 is something different. And the Book of Boba Fett is its own standalone limited series, which means it's going to be like 1 4-part or 6-part thing, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it'll be just 1 2-hour movie, I'm not sure. But the best of my understanding, they are 2 separate things. Until I hear otherwise, officially from, Kathy Kennedy or somebody at Disney, I think that's the safest thing to assume. They're going to be 2 separate things. So we are going to get a Book of Boba Fett and we are going to get Mandalorian Season 3, which will apparently focus on Mando now going along with Bo-Katan to help her retake Mandalore. And then obviously some inner drama with who gets to have the Darksaber, that sort of stuff. All right, thanks for that, James. Next up, Garrett Couch writes, finally, we get to see Luke mow down some fools as a Jedi Master like a knife through butter. R2, CGI cringy, yes, but come on. And yes, we all cried at the end. What an episode. So, I guess it's been like 48 hours since I wasn't going to talk spoilers today, but I guess it has been 48 hours since Mandalorian came out. So I guess the word is out there. So I'll allow the spoilers, I suppose. First of all, let's just get that out of the way. The CGI Luke face was bad. I mean, there's no getting around that. It was. I mean, certainly better than I could have done, but I'm not the standard of excellence in this, am I? It was bad. But you know what? It honestly didn't take anything away from it for me. I was still able to watch it and enjoy it, and my head just adjusted. My head went like, okay, yeah, that looks bad, and that's okay. This is still awesome. And I was able to live with it. But yes, seeing Luke mow down fools, even though it was just robots, still premium. Of course, my favorite part of it was when he was down to the last Dark Trooper. He could have just easily had it was only one left. He could have just easily took his lightsaber and gone, meh, and just cut him in half, right? But he wanted to strut a little bit. Luke wanted to strut. So he gets his hand and crushes him. Oh, that was so awesome. I love that so much. What an episode indeed. Cannot wait for the Book of Boba Fett. Cannot wait for Mandalorian Season 3. All right, thanks for that, Garrett. Next up, Nick C. writes, hey, John. I just finished your documentary over the weekend, and I must say I loved it. Thank you so much, Nick. I appreciate that, man. I was curious if there was any chapter in particular which you felt a more of a personal connection to than the rest. Mine would be the Phantom Menace chapter, the Phantom Menace chapter. Nick said that's one of 2, and I don't see any other Nick. So we'll just have to go with that. So for those of you who don't know, my documentary is broken into 12 chapters that each deal with a different specific subject when it comes to movie trailers and the history of movie trailers and where the trailers are today. And there is a chapter specifically dedicated to the release of the Phantom Menace, because that was the first time, and I'm giving a little bit away here, but you'll get a lot more of this in depth if you watch the documentary. You got to understand, that was the first time really in history that huge amounts of people were running out to the movie theaters and buying tickets to go see a movie only to watch a trailer and then leave. That had never really happened before. So everybody went, and Meet Joe Black, the Anthony Hopkins, Brad Pitt movie. Meet Joe Black made a lot of money because of Star Wars, The Phantom Menace, because a lot of people buy tickets and then they'd leave. And so we have this whole chapter dedicated to really the impact that Phantom Menace one had. I gotta say, honestly, the one that probably had the more personal connection to me was probably the Iron Man one. And I won't go into anything about that. You'll have to see. There's an entire chapter dedicated to the first Iron Man trailer that debuted at Comic-Con and the significance of that. But I'll leave that for you guys to decide. So, Nick, I'd say the one that has the biggest personal connection to me is Iron Man, because, I was there at Comic-Con when it happened, at any rate. Thanks a lot for watching my documentary, Nick. I really appreciate it, man. Next up, Brazilian Dude writes, watching the season finale of The Mandalorian felt like the second coming of Jesus. Thank you for the early Christmas present, Favreau, Filoni, and Reed. My pants were not ready. And yeah, a lot of people forget and didn't realize that Peyton Reed, the director of Ant-Man and Ant-Man 2 and the upcoming Ant-Man Quantumania, yes, that is the name of it, Peyton Reed, the guy a lot of us thought would end up being the director of Fantastic Four, but that's going to be John Watts, who's the director of Homecoming, Spider-Man Homecoming, and Spider-Man Far From Home. Anyway, Peyton Reed did a fabulous job on that episode. Jon Favreau wrote the episode. And just look, we're running out of things to say about what Jon Favreau has been able to accomplish. I mean, and obviously his whole team, from Dave Filoni, Rick Famuyiwa, Peyton, everybody at Lucasfilm, even Kathy Kennedy. But I mean, everybody knows Favreau is the guy who conceptualized this, took it, and he's made it work, and he's overseen the whole thing. And we're just running out of things to say about how truly fun this whole series has been. Season 1, Season 2, both knocked it out of the park, and I cannot wait to see what he's got in store for us next. All right, next up, Jake writes, I actually thought Gina Carano was fine/okay in Season 1, but the further along we went in Season 2, the more I thought, is that the look you're going with? Contrast her with Pedro's minimalistic work, and you're left wanting. Yeah, I will say, look, here's the thing. When they first announced that Gina Carano was going to be in this, I was happy about it because I'm a fan of Gina Carano. But, even I've always said, Gina Carano is not the strongest actress in the world. She'll be the first person. Gina Carano herself will be the first person to tell you that. The question would be, can she, with the physical attributes that she brings, with the ability to do action and stuff like this and come across as a tough guy character, can the right direction make her workable? And in Season 1, the answer to that was obviously yes. I thought Gina Carano was quite good in Season 1. I agree. There were some times in Season 2 when you could tell, oh, that person she's on screen with is a real actor, and she's kind of not. But I never personally felt like it distracted from anything. I thought she did her job well enough. I did. And I thought for the most part, the actors, or the directors, I should say, that directed the episode she was in, did a fine job of accentuating the strengths she brought to the character while minimizing the weaknesses she could have brought to the character. They did shine a couple more times this season than in Season 1, granted, but I never thought it became so bad that it was distracting or it took away from the scene or it pulled me out of the scene, you know what I mean? But yeah, listen, Gina Carano, but I'll say this too, Gina Carano is a lot better of an actress today than she was 7 or 8 years ago. When she was really getting started in acting, she was really not that good. And she's still not great, but she's better than she was. And you know what? She'll be better come Season 3. Or I still believe, I have no proof of this, I think she's going to be one of the stars of Rangers of the New Republic, the new Jon Favreau Star Wars show. So I don't know that for sure, but if she is, I bet you she gets even better. So, but I see where you're coming from, Jake. I do. I completely see where you're coming from. Next up, Bob writes, George Lucas was one part revolutionary technology pushing filmmaker and one part world building lore master. The reason why Filoni and Favreau are killing it is because for the first time since George, both aspects are being attended to. Yes and no. And let's be honest here, it is more Favreau than anything else. Jon Favreau is the guy who came up with this whole thing, but still everybody involved. But it's a little bit yes and it's a little bit no. They are what Favreau, and I have all the love in the world for Jon Favreau. You know this. But Favreau is playing in somebody else's playground. Let's not pretend he created this universe. Jon Favreau would probably grab us both by the throat and say, don't you dare give me credit for this part of it, because this wasn't me, this was George. He'd probably tell us both that. So let's be clear. What they, particularly Favreau, has done is not replicated what George Lucas did. It's something completely different. Instead of creating this huge world and this universe, blah, 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 Jon Favreau was able to come along and actually come in as a guest into that huge world that Lucas had created. What Favreau has simply done was come up with a new story to tell within it. And understood when it's okay to borrow pieces from the existing lore and when to add new little pieces to that universe that somebody else built for him. The one thing that also is kind of similar is the fact that Favreau really is one of these filmmakers who's really he's not James Cameron, but he is now one of these filmmakers really trying to push the limits of technology to use in the art of filmmaking. And again, like James Cameron's on a whole nother level. George Lucas was on a whole nother level. But that is a similarity, the same kind of trait that Favreau has as well. He's really trying to push the envelope of really leveraging new technologies and incorporate them into the art of storytelling. And he's done a really good job. And again, that's not to take away what Favreau has done. I'm just saying what he has done is great, but it's different. You know, it's different than what George did. But the results have been fabulous. I mean, that's all that matters. The results have been fabulous, and we all get to be grateful for that. Okay, next up, we got Adam UK Friend who writes, John, how does an action movie star A-lister like Bob Chapek? How does an action movie star A-lister like Bob Chapek? I mean Bruce Willis. Yeah, Bob Chapek, who's the new CEO of Disney, he does look a little bit like Bruce Willis's slightly less attractive brother. No knock on Bob Chapek, but you know, Bruce Willis is a handsome man. He does look a little bit like that. Sorry. How does an A-lister like Bob Chapek, Bruce Willis, become a straight-to-DVD actor? He was one of the biggest stars in Hollywood in the late 1980s and 1990s. Thoughts on the 80s action era? By the way, love the documentary. Thank you so much, Adam, for checking out my documentary. I appreciate that, man. Listen, Bruce Willis has kind of become, unfortunately, the poster child for once big A-list name, now relegated to certain types of parts and certain types of projects that he gets to be in. How that happens to any actor is very unique. In Bruce Willis's case, I believe the reason that happened, because look, Bruce Willis has all the talent in the world. I'll tell you right now, Bruce Willis has all the talent in the world. When he actually cares about a project and decides to really work with the director and really apply himself, he is still, I'm not going to say a top 10 actor, but he is still an upper echelon actor. He's tremendously talented and gifted. The problem with Bruce Willis is somewhere around, 2005, he just stopped giving any craps. He just didn't care anymore. And one of the really unfortunate things is, listen to Kevin Smith. You can go and look it up on YouTube. Kevin Smith telling about his difficult experience working with Bruce Willis on, what was the name of that cop film? Buddy Cop or Cop something. Anyway, Kevin Smith directed a movie with Bruce Willis, and he just talked about how it was a nightmare experience. And I think that really highlights the fact that he just doesn't care. He just doesn't care anymore. And you know what? God bless him. He's still getting paid. He's not getting paid as much as he used to, but he gets to be in all these straight-to-home video movies, and he probably is the biggest part of their budgets. And he gets to live whatever lifestyle he wants to live, and he doesn't even have to try all that hard. So God bless him, man. But I think in the case, for every actor, it's different. But I think in the case of Bruce Willis, it is very much a case of he just stopped caring. Because he never lost his talent. I just think he stopped caring, which is unfortunate because he's one of the better actors out there. All right, Darklock63 writes, who tips in $20. Thank you, Darklock, for supporting the channel on that level, man. The Mandalorian, all I can say is wow. And that after credit, leave it to Disney to have an ace up their sleeve. Now I'm like a kid at Christmas who can't sleep. December 21st is too far away. Well, here's the great thing, though. This is the really great thing about The Mandalorian ending this year, as opposed to The Mandalorian ending the end of season 1, which is when Mandalorian season 1 ended, that was it for Disney Plus. They had no other premium content come out all year. That was it. Mandalorian, and that was it. They changed their plans and fast-tracked Hamilton and put out Hamilton a year earlier than they were going to, which turned out to be a brilliant move on their part. But still, there was nothing. This year, it's different. This year, yes, Mandalorian's done, and now we got to wait a year for the next chapters of The Mandalorian, but we have more stuff coming, including in just about 5 weeks, we've got WandaVision, the start of the MCU on Disney+. And then after WandaVision, we're going to have Falcon and Winter Soldier. And then at some point, we're going to have the Loki show. And then at some point, we're going to have the Hawkeye series. And, and it's just going to be a different year than last year. And I'm really excited. So, yes, we do have to wait another year for the next installment of Favreau's goodness, but we're going to get more Disney Plus premium content in the shape of the MCU very soon. And that makes this year a lot better. And hardly ever say that about 2020, do you? Anyway, at least it's going into 2021. Next up, thanks again for that, Dark Lock. Next up, Frostbit3 writes, it was nice finally getting to see Luke be a badass. I never got the impression from the original trilogy how skilled he was, especially compared to Anakin. So it was nice being able to see him on par with PT prequel trilogy era. Guys, please don't use acronyms. Prequel trilogy era Jedi. Seeing him kick ass is better than being told he can. I agree. Now, you guys know I have been waiting for years to watch Luke Skywalker pull out a lightsaber and just wreck shop on some fools. I originally wanted to see it in The Last Jedi. That's what I wanted in The Last Jedi. They gave me something else, and you know what? I liked what they gave me, even though it was completely different than what I wanted. I liked Luke Skywalker and what they did. They made it more of a real human character study than anything else. But now it was so satisfying to see that Luke Skywalker, you know, now 5 years removed from that confrontation with the Emperor and Vader on the second Death Star. It's been 5 years longer that he's just had to train and prepare and study and grow in his power. And it was really, really cool seeing that Frostbite. Absolutely it was. Payne 141 writes, Mandalorian Season 2 finale comes to us on the 5-year anniversary of The Force Awakens. Really? I guess that's true, isn't it? Yeah, because it was 4 years. We just had the 4-year anniversary of Rogue One, which is really weird to me. I still remember when that doesn't feel like all that long ago. But I guess that would make sense now that it would be the 5-year anniversary of The Force Awakens. By the way, I know there are still some people out there that don't appreciate The Force Awakens. I will always defend it. Not so much The Rise of Skywalker, but I love The Force Awakens. I think it is not as good as any of the original trilogy, but I think it is the best Star Wars movie other than the original trilogy. Just barely ahead of Rogue One. And then probably Rogue One would come in after that. But I personally love The Force Awakens. Anyway, thanks for pointing that out, Payne. Appreciate that, man. All right, King Artos of Monteval writes, hey, John, I just wanted to say I'm one with the Force and the Force is with me. Excellent season finale of The Mandalorian. It absolutely was. And you know, what a difference a year makes. Think about this. A little over a year ago, The Mandalorian had not yet debuted. There was the promise of The Mandalorian, and sure enough, a lot of us were all very much looking forward to it, but it hadn't come out yet. We didn't know if it was going to be any good or not. The state of Star Wars, particularly the fandom, it's still not great today, but the state of Star Wars fandom was an absolute toxic chemical cesspool a little over a year ago. And there's a lot of blame to go around for that. Fast forward a little over a year, and now we've come to the conclusion and the completion of Mandalorian Season 2 with Obi-Wan on the horizon, Mandalorian Season 3, The Acolyte, which is probably the Star Wars thing I'm probably most excited about upcoming, Rangers of the New Republic, Ahsoka Tano, which a lot of people are excited about. I don't even like Ahsoka Tano, and even I'm looking forward to that now that I've seen Rosario Dawson play it. Anyway, what you now have is a still ill Star Wars fandom. The Star Wars fandom is still ill, but it's not on life support deathbed like it was due to its own incestuous, cancerous toxicity like it was a little over a year ago. What do I always say? Winning cures everything. 3 magic words, man. They apply in sports, they apply in life, and they certainly apply in the movies. Winning cures everything. You put out something like Mandalorian, you give people something excited to look forward to, like Acolyte and whatever else, and suddenly, it's a lot more fun being a Star Wars fan again. It's a lot more fun being a Star Wars fan again, so that's my take on it. All right, next up. Let's see, we've got Brothantrian, anyway, writes, thanks for having such a great show. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. And I have been talking about tour film to others. Do you mean your film, like my movie to others? Thank you for that. Now, Mandalorian, man, I have one thing to say. They sideswiped us last week at the announcement, and boom, Boba surprise. Keep up the great work. And that, listen, you'd think with all the stuff that they announced at the Disney Investors event, with, again, Rogue Squadron, Ahsoka Tano, Rangers of the New Republic, Obi-Wan, Acolyte, you would think with all that, there's nothing left to talk about. Oh, but they did. They had one more ace up their sleeve, the Book of Boba Fett. And how excited are we all for that? I cannot wait. But you're right. It was kind of like their Steve Jobs Apple moment of, oh, one more thing. That was what the Book of Boba Fett announcement was. And I'm right with you on that, man. All right, next up. Brothatrian writes again. By the way, I don't need a Luke show, and since they basically scrapped the new trilogy, the walk-off with Grogu can be a series or masterful change in the lore. Well, they're not going to change the lore per se. And listen, I was just having this discussion with somebody on the chat board on the YouTube channel earlier. Look, unapologetically, Luke Skywalker is my all-time favorite Star Wars character. Luke is my favorite character. I honestly don't see any point in doing a Luke Skywalker series. I see no point to it. You know, it's one thing, and I kind of explained this once before, but it's one thing when you get like Titanic. It's like, well, we know how the Titanic ends, right? True, we know how the Titanic ends. Titanic hits an iceberg and it sinks. But that's all we know. We don't know anything about any of the characters that are in the that populate the movie. We don't know anything about what their individual conflicts are. We don't know anything about anything else. We know that this boat is going to sink at the end, and that's all we know. A Luke Skywalker series to me is pretty pointless because not only do we ultimately know what happens to Luke anyway, we know that he does succeed in getting a new Jedi Academy going. So we know that happens. We know at some point he takes in his nephew, young Ben, aka Kylo Ren, to be one of his pupils. We know that eventually Ben gets seduced by the dark side and ultimately turns on Luke and the other kids and slaughters a bunch of them. I mean, there's so much we already know. So I don't know. Like, even though Luke is my favorite character, I don't find a lot to be interested in seeing a Luke Skywalker series. But John, we get to see him lightsaber fight a lot. Yeah, I get that, but I don't know. Now, don't get me wrong. If suddenly they announce that, I don't know, a Peyton Reed or whatever is going to come in and direct a Luke Skywalker series, well, of course I'll watch it. Of course I will. It's Luke Skywalker. But I think there's probably a lot of other stories they could tell that might be better at this point. And then just have Luke pop up in all the different shows in this time period. You know, Rangers, Boba Fett, Ahsoka Tano, Mando Season 3. There's going to be opportunities to have Luke pop up once in a while to still give us that little Luke Skywalker fix. But I don't know that a series would be good for it. Yeah, that's just me. Maybe I can have my mind changed, though. All right, next up. We've got King Artos of Monteval writes, also, just wanted to thank you for recommending Kim's Convenience. I love that show with a deep and abiding passion, my friends. I just can't get enough. Also wanted to return the favor. Cinemax has a martial arts drama called Warrior, based on a concept by Bruce Lee, produced by his daughter Shannon and Justin Lin. If I'm not mistaken, hold on a second. Warrior. That's not to be mistaken with the Tom Hardy movie. Let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, that's the 2011 movie I was thinking about. Warrior, the TV series. Oh, you know what? I have seen this. I've seen this being promoted. If this is one you're talking about, during the Tong Wars in the late 1800s, Assam, a martial arts prodigy from China, immigrates to San Francisco and becomes a hatchet man for the most powerful Tong in Chinatown. Sounds good to me. Why not? Sign me up. Sounds good. Who do you say is doing this one? You're saying this is a Cinemax, is that one? Well, I don't have Cinemax, so I'll have to look into that, but that sounds pretty intriguing. I will keep my eyes open for it. Thank you, King Artros, for putting that on my radar, man. I'm a sucker for all the martial arts stuff. All right, Blake writes, I know Lucasfilm has other exciting things in the works, but they honestly could end it all right there and I'd be satisfied and happy. I've been waiting for that for decades and it was glorious. Obviously talking about the Luke Skywalker reveal. And you're right. That they literally, if we had nothing else Star Wars coming until Star Wars Episode 10, however many years from now that happens, you're right. I think we'd all go to bed satisfied. I don't think you're wrong. But it also serves as a great launching point to hype up the already huge amount of excitement that Disney generated on that investors meeting and the announcements of all those shows coming. And now this finale is going to feed that energy for the next year. It's just incredible what they've been able to pull off. Now, let's see if they're able to keep that level of excellence going. I hope that they do. All right, next up. Freddie writes, John, first off, I want to say that I really loved your show. Thank you so much. I look forward to it every day. Your movie was great as well. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Which I watched yesterday. Finally, this season finale of The Mandalorian was better than the whole last trilogy. Tell me I'm wrong. Well, I mean, it's all subjective. Here's what I say. To me, I mean, Mandalorian, the finale on its own, no, isn't better than anything because the finale is built on everything else that came before it in The Mandalorian. Somebody asked me something similar the other day, and this is what I said. I believe the series The Mandalorian is better than the sequel trilogy. I still think The Force Awakens is the single best thing out of all of it. But as a whole trilogy, like The Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, I feel like I want to choke every time I say The Rise of Skywalker. But as a whole, yeah, the Mandalorian series is definitely great. But you can't just take us, if they had nothing else on TV, like if they just dropped Mandalorian one episode, it's a 45-minute special, with none of that groundwork that was laid down in the rest of the series, then I would suggest that the Mandalorian season finale really wouldn't feel all that special. It would have felt like a gimmick drop with, oh, look, they have Luke Skywalker show up. But because as a series, it's one coherent, organic thing, that's what makes that finale so special. So I would say, to me, the Mandalorian series thus far has been significantly better than the prequel, certainly more than the prequel, but also better than the sequel trilogy. I would agree with that. I still think The Force Awakens is a magnificent piece of Star Wars lore, and I still think that's probably the best thing in Star Wars outside of the original trilogy. But as a collective trilogy, the sequel trilogy does not compare to the Mandalorian series as a whole. So I agree with you on that completely. All right, next up. Rated Row writes, hey, John and Rob. Rob's not here right now, obviously. Holy shit and WTF. Is this not a great time to be a Star Wars fan? John and Dave took a syringe of Star Wars steroids and just injected fans full of goodness. Just think if these guys had the keys first, how different the franchise would be. I don't know. I think, listen, one of the things that Favreau has talked about himself is that it is a different beast putting together 30 to 40 minute little bites. And let's be honest, like all of Star Wars, but specifically Mandalorian, it ain't Shakespeare, right? It ain't Breaking Bad. It ain't Game of Thrones. It's a lot of fan service, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Fan service can be used in a good way, and Favreau has used fan service in a masterful way. The MCU did the same thing. It's a lot of fan service, a lot of relying on nostalgia, but a lot of Star Wars does that. And all that kind of, so I mean, it's who's to say if they were actually asked to do a trilogy right off the bat, if they would have been able to come up with a concept or not. Look, Rian Johnson, I like The Last Jedi, but I have issues with it. But The Last Jedi is a movie that a lot of Star Wars fans didn't like. But Rian Johnson is a master filmmaker at the same time. Like, just watch Looper. Or, heavens, watch the Academy Award nominated Knives Out. Knives Out is masterful, amazing. John Favreau just did The Lion King, which I thought was great. I love John Favreau's Lion King. Love it. Not as much as the original Lion King, but I loved it. But a lot of people hated it. I still don't understand why, but whatever. A lot of people hated it, right? But then he had an idea that really, really worked with Mandalorian. So, I mean, it's easy to say, oh, that filmmaker or storyteller did a great job on that thing. Oh, imagine if he had done this other thing. Well, maybe it would have worked out as well. Maybe it wouldn't have. Again, I'm all about Favreau's Lion King. I thought he did a fantastic job with that, but a lot of people hate on it. A lot of people hate on that thing. So they all just forget and say, oh, if only he had done the Star Wars movies. Well, maybe it would have worked. Maybe it would have been Mandalorian, or maybe it would have been another Lion King where a lot of people hated it. You just never know. What we do know is this idea he had for this lone gunslinger in the Wild West set in the Star Wars universe was a brilliant idea, executed to near perfection. And while all the rest of you keep hating on Favreau's Lion King, I'm going to keep loving it. So there. Anyway, thanks for that, Rated Joe. Next up, Baton K writes, Dear John, greetings from Switzerland. Thank you for writing in from Switzerland. Big fan of your work. Thank you so much. I assume you've heard the allegations surfacing against Shia LaBeouf, disturbing stuff. How do you view Shia as an actor and the release of pieces of woman which details with domestic violence? Just, I don't get into the TMZ bullshit. I don't. Unless there's direct effect happening on a particular movie involved, I try not to get into it. Listen, my stuff is always the same. I don't know Shia LaBeouf. I'm certainly a fan of his as an actor. He's a tremendous talent. There's no doubt. But I don't know Shia LaBeouf, and I was certainly not there, and I certainly don't know what's true or not, what isn't true. What I always say when there's allegations like this is, if such and such allegations are true, then screw that guy. If they're not, then screw those who are trying to falsely accuse him. But the bottom line is, I don't know, because I'm not there. I have nothing to do with it. I don't know what the actual facts or truth are, so there's no point in me getting involved in discussing this TMZ stuff. Really isn't the stuff that I do. I appreciate you asking, but this kind of outside the scope of what I talk about, and it's certainly outside of the scope of what we know for fact. Everybody thinks they know because they read something on the internet. We don't know anything. I certainly don't know anything. So yeah, so my same thing as always. If he's done a lot of the things he's being accused of, screw that guy. But if he hasn't, screw those people who are doing it. So until then, I just don't know. I just don't know. All right, thanks for writing that in though, man. All right, Darth Rootsky writes, Hey John, wow. I missed when flew in. They really did the legacy justice. What a win for Filoni, Favreau, and us fans. I've always thought the show works without Baby Yoda as long as they continue to tell great Star Wars stories. What do you think? Well, I mean, here's the thing about that. And it's still crazy so many people want to give Filoni, I know there are Clone Wars and Rebels fans. I am a Rebels fan. I know there are Clone Wars and Rebels fans who really want to rush to give Filoni a lot of credit too. And he should get a lot of credit, but this was Favreau's project. We shouldn't lose sight of that. And Favreau really mentored Filoni through this. And Favreau wrote the episodes. He wrote basically the whole season with this exception of 1 or 2 episodes. At any rate, that being said, they will not lose sight of one simple truth. The reason Mandalorian became a worldwide phenomenon is Baby Yoda. A lot of Star Wars fans tuned in to The Mandalorian, but it's when Baby Yoda came on screen that even people who were not Star Wars fans, a lot of people, like this one girl, me and Ann know, knew nothing about Star Wars. The moment she saw Baby Yoda, what is that? And then she started watching Mandalorian religiously. Baby Yoda became as much a part of Mandalorian as Mando himself. And I don't know, I'm just saying I think. What I think is that when Mando said to Baby Yoda, I will see you again, I promise, that wasn't really Din talking to Baby Yoda. That was actually Jon Favreau talking to us, the fans, saying, that was basically Jon Favreau turning to the camera and saying, don't worry, guys, Baby Yoda will be back. That's what it was. So when Din was saying to Grogu, I will see you again, I promise, that was really Favreau looking at us, winking his eye and saying, don't worry, You will see Baby Yoda again, I promise. Again, I haven't heard Jon Favreau say that publicly, but that is absolutely what I think was happening in that scene. That's absolutely what I think was happening in that scene. So yeah, there's that. All right, next up, Yaz writes, I'm sick of the Sebastian talk. We've lost so many Star Wars alumni lately. Let Mark Hamill have his moment, especially after notoriously hating his Last Jedi character. Actually, that's a misnoter. He didn't hate his... A lot of people ran with that. He actually didn't look... All I can tell you is this. I was at the Last Jedi premiere, and I was standing right beside Bob Iger, Mark Hamill, Alan Horn, and a few other people involved too. Hamill was thrilled. I think we always knew there were some things he didn't approve of or whatever, but at any rate, I think a lot of people who hate the sequel trilogy tend to interpret certain things a certain way, but at any rate. Prime Luke gave me goosebumps. Casting Stan for one cameo is not realistic or necessary. Well, listen, for the record, I don't know that was Mark Hamill. I don't think that was Mark Hamill. I don't think that was Mark Hamill and them digitally de-aging him. Like in Ant-Man 1, at the beginning of Ant-Man 1, when Kirk Douglas, or Michael Douglas, Kirk Douglas is his father, when Michael Douglas comes on screen and they do the digital de-aging, but that was actually Michael Douglas in the scene, and he acted out the scene, and then they digitally de-aged him. I don't think that was Mark Hamill. I don't think Mark Hamill was on set. I don't think he did the voice. Actually, I'm sure he didn't do the voice. Well, I can't say I'm sure of anything, but he wasn't on set. I don't think that was him. Now, if somebody has something that says that I'm incorrect about that, I'd love to see that. But as far as I know, that wasn't even him. Listen, the only reason people talk Sebastian Stan isn't because everybody loves Sebastian Stan as an actor. I personally happen to love Sebastian Stan as an actor. But it's just because somebody once, a couple of years ago, put up this Photoshop image of Sebastian Stan looking a lot like young Mark Hamill. That's it. This whole thing that everybody loses their mind about, get Sebastian Stan to play Luke, is all based on a fan once made this image and put it up, and everybody went, wow, he looks like him. He should be the new Luke, as if that's the important thing. I told this story before, but it reminds me of before the new Superman movie started coming out, everybody was saying because Billy Zane had just done a movie that required his head to be shaved. So there are these promo shots of Billy Zane with the shaved head in a suit, and everybody denies it now, but everybody was like, Billy Zane should be Lex Luthor. Look at him. He's bald. Lex Luthor is bald. That's what this Sebastian Stan thing reminds me of. Although there are a couple other factors that go into the Sebastian Stan thing. Number one, he is a good actor. He's a very good actor. I like him very much. But number two, he's already in the Disney family, right? He's Winter Soldier, so he's already in the Disney family. So there's that. So it's not the craziest thing in the world. But yeah, the only reason people go on that is because there were these pictures floated that made him look like young Mark Hamill, and as if that's the real reason you would cast somebody. And who knows, maybe they will someday, I don't know. But I don't know. Here's the thing, yes, the CGI was so bad. The CGI was so bad that it didn't take me out of the show because everything else was so great. But it might have been better. It might have been better for them to get another actor to do it, because I don't think it was Mark Hamill. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong about that. All right, next up, Damo Davies writes, greetings from the UK. Well, thank you, Damo, for writing in from the UK. So in the spirit of the is it Christmas movie or isn't it debate, where do you stand on Batman Returns being a Christmas movie? I always watched it every Christmas, and I've just watched it last night. It's not a Christmas movie. It's much like Die Hard. To me, and it all depends on everybody's own individual interpretation of what makes a Christmas movie a Christmas movie. I happen to side, we were just talking about Bruce Willis. I happen to side with Bruce Willis. Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. And the reason I believe personally that I believe it is not a Christmas movie, because the movie's not about Christmas. The events of the movie happen to take place at Christmas time, much like what happens in Batman Batman Returns, but Christmas is not the theme of the movie. So to me, that means no, it is not a Christmas movie. But that's just see, it's hard to come to consensus on this because we don't even agree on what the definition of what a Christmas movie is. And since we all have a different definition of what makes a Christmas movie, we obviously can't agree on then what movie is a Christmas movie or not if we don't even agree on the same definition of a Christmas movie. So, but that just happens to be my take on it, Damo. I do not consider Batman Returns to be a Christmas movie, but that's just me. Maybe others do. All right, next up. Damo Davies also writes, we got the satisfying death of Joffrey Baratheon. Then we get more satisfying death of Ramsay Bolton. Then we get the even more fulfilling death of Walder Frey. And then finally, the most fulfilling death in Game of Thrones, Lord Baelish. That was quite an ending. So I saw, that wasn't continued. Yeah, listen, I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what anybody says. The last couple of seasons of Game of Thrones were awesome. Awesome. The one critique I hear about, particularly the final season of Game of Thrones that I do agree with, was there is no excuse for it only being, 5 episodes or something? I can't even remember, but it was some ridiculously short number of episodes. There was no excuse to only be that many episodes because that did require some things to be rushed. I still thought they did an incredible job. I still thought what they ended up with and what they created was magnificent and absolutely fantastic. And there's a reason why the final season of Game of Thrones broke every record for Emmys, most nominations, most wins, most everything. I mean, it's all that kind of stuff. But anyway, there was a lot of people who didn't like it, and that's fine. But for me, I thought it was awesome. Just want to be on the record about that. All the haters can suck it. I thought it was awesome. But it's cool if you didn't. It's all fun. All right, next up. Damo also writes, so I saw Wonder Woman 84 in the UK in spite of it only being open on 1/4 of its usual screens due to the lockdown measures in parts of Great Britain, but I thoroughly enjoyed being back in the cinemas again. Much improved over the first, highly recommended. You know, that's been a great thing. Not everybody who's seeing Wonder Woman 84 is saying it's better than the first, and I really enjoyed the first one. But a surprising amount of people are saying they think it's even, not just that it's really good, but are saying it's even better than the first one. That to me is very exciting. Again, if I end up agreeing that it's even better than the first one, I'm probably going to come out of the theaters going, really wondering why the hell didn't they make better trailers? Because the trailers were not good. I mean, they weren't the worst trailers. They weren't awful, but they weren't all that good either. They didn't make me more excited for the movie. But I've always maintained my faith in Patty Jenkins, so I'm really hoping I'm going to like it as much as you did, Damo. All right, next up. Jedi Master Ruski writes, hey, Giovanni. Just a side note, just why do some people call me G or Giovanni? Just for those of you who may not know, Giovanni is actually my real name, just so you know. Giovanni, just a side note to thank you for continuing to put out great platform for us fans to share our geekdom. The care and reverence that has been shown from the new guard of Star Wars content creators is really incredible. Long live the Filoniverse. I don't know that I would call this the Filoniverse, but whatever. A lot of people love Dave Filoni, so give them. I like Dave Filoni a lot too. I love Rebels. Just watched. You know what I did to prep for the final episode of Mandalorian? I watched a couple of things, but one of the things I wanted to prep myself for was I went back and watched the series finale of Rebels. Rebels is a really good show. I mean, Rebels was a little hit and miss sometimes. There were a couple of episodes I really could have done without. But overall, I remember Rebels was the show that made me feel, Clone Wars never did this for me. But I told this story recently, but I remember the first time I watched Rebels Season 1, Episode 1. The first episode. I think I might have watched the first 2 episodes back to back. And me and Harloff got on the phone together, Christian Harloff. And he's like, well, what did you think? And I remember what I told him. I said, this is the first time since maybe Return of the Jedi that I felt like it felt like Star Wars again. Clone Wars to me never felt like Star Wars. It felt like a series about Star Wars, but it never felt like Star Wars to me. And for whatever reason, what Filoni did with Rebels, he just flipped a switch somewhere, or he changed a couple things, but Rebels to me felt like Star Wars again. And I, to this day, I can't put my finger on it, what it was that made me feel it for that series, but not Filoni's other series, Clone Wars. But he really nailed it in Rebels. And I watched that last episode again, just to prep myself for it, because I was kind of expecting Ezra Bridger was going to show up in the final episode of Mandalorian. I really did. I mean, I knew Luke, I talked for weeks. I knew Luke was a strong possibility. I thought Cal from the video game Fallen Order, I thought Cal was a good possibility. I thought maybe a Force ghost of either Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, since Obi-Wan has a series coming. But I always said if I had to put $5 on it, I bet it would be Ezra Bridger. But it didn't end up being Ezra Bridger. So I ended up watching the finale of Rebels for no reason, but except for the fact that I just got to watch the finale of Rebels again. So that was pretty good. All right, next up. We've got top 5 UFC who writes. Number 1, Royce Gracie, original champ. Number 2, Rowdy Ronda Rousey, first women champ, and completely dominant champ for a while before the rest of the sport caught up with her. Number 3, Habib the Eagle, on the ground, undefeated. Number 4, Anderson the Spider Silva, best striker, legendary knockouts. Number 5, George St. Pierre, most well-rounded. John, who is your favorite women's fighter of all time? Favorite was probably Ronda Rousey. I mean, listen, when she was in her heyday, it was her and everybody else, She was so far ahead of the sport. When the women's division in UFC really got started, it was Ronda Rousey, and she was a mile ahead of everybody else. And she was so dominant that it just became almost laughable how dominant she was, until she ran into the preacher's daughter, Holly Holmes, who was just insane, like so good. And now we've got Amanda Nunes right now, who's a really dominant champion. And we've got Valentino Shevchenko, who is a crazy lethal champion. So it's a great thing. But during that run, the distance between, like, Amanda's a dominant champion, but the distance between Amanda and everybody else is not as great as the distance between Ronda Rousey and everybody else was when Ronda was in her glory days, right? For those couple of years. And so I'll probably go, and then it fell apart because the rest of the sport just caught up with her and she failed to keep evolving. But yeah, for those years, I'd say Ronda. All right, next up. Andrew Nathan writes, "Hey, John, I guess Snyder Cut isn't going to be a miniseries anymore. I have no problems with this because obviously I'm a fan and will still watch it. There are reports that it's because the difference in pay structure between film and TV. Any thoughts?" I have not heard that. Just to be honest, I have not heard that. Ann and I just bought a house, just so everybody knows. We just closed the deal. I am out of town right now because we are here going through our house, our new house. Very excited. We move in 6 weeks. We're going to have some renovations done to it and stuff like that. So I'm actually right now in Corona, California. Unfortunate name for the town right now, given our current times and circumstances. I am currently in Corona, California. This is where Ann and I bought a new house, is out here. And so I've been a little bit disconnected for the last 24 to 48 hours of what's going on. So I have not heard that myself. Instead of me just trying to flim-flam my way through it here, let me go and check it out. And if that's true, then I'm sure it's going to be a topic on the John Campea Show on Monday, and we'll get caught up there. Okay, guys. With all that, it looks like we are all caught up to where we were by the end of Friday's show. Thank you guys for being here and joining me for this companion video. A special thank you to all you guys who sent in all those questions. Number 1, because you gave us great fun things to talk about, but number 2, you supported this channel while you did it, and all of us here on the John Campea YouTube channel, thank you guys so much for that support. Okay, guys, that will do it for me for now. Don't forget to come back and join us for the John Campea Show on Monday. Me and Robert Meyer Burnett will be talking about a whole bunch of stuff going on, which I'm excited about. Also, for those of you who watched our Mandalorian season finale open spoiler discussion, we do have a companion video of that going up later tonight, or maybe even tomorrow on Sunday. But I thought instead of just hearing me answer all the same questions, I thought maybe you guys would appreciate getting a different point of view on some of it. So I asked Robert Meyer Burnett to do the companion video part of the Mandalorian season finale open spoiler review. So that'll be going up in the next 24 hours too as well. Keep your eyes open for that. Guys, Please make sure to do the four main things. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. That'll do it for me for now, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. My name is John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.